Welcome to another video from explainingcomputers.com. This time I'm going to do a group test of high capacity USB 3 drives. Now before some of you say to me, Chris, you don't need USB drives anymore, everything can be stored out on the internet. Well, to some extent that's true, but I certainly find there's many occasions when it's useful to be able to store a few tens of gigabytes of data on a nice small device that I can just put in my pocket and take with me for some level of security. It's also the case that in many corporate environments, in many companies, you can't as a visitor access the internet to get to files. Now, I frequently visit companies to make presentations, and if I haven't got my files with me on a USB drive, I simply can't access the file. I can't get to the net. I can't access Google or Dropbox or something like that. Indeed, I was in a company fairly recently making a presentation where the security was so tight there was even keycard access on every toilet cubicle in the building, and therefore if I hadn't got my files on a USB drive, I would have been in great difficulty. So anyway, that's enough of my babbling introduction. Let's go and have a look at my exciting newer USB storage hardware. Right, well here are the three USB keys I'm going to look at. All USB 3, all as you can see 64 gigabyte capacity, so they're identical in terms of their specification. First key we've got here is from Corsair. This is their Voyager GT. I've always liked Corsair USB keys. They're the first type of key I tend to purchase, but here I thought I'd compare it to some others to see whether this really is the one I should be carrying in my pocket. There's the Corsair, nice and shiny there. I then thought I'd get this Transcend key to look at. This is a very, if you like, traditional make, very conservative looking key there, but well, we'll see how it performs. And then there's something slightly different. I got this. This is the Fury from HyperX. Now, HyperX you probably know as a sort of high performance brand. It's actually part of Kingston. It does their high performance products, particularly gaming products, but they now also do USB drives. So I think the next thing I need to do is to take all of these USB keys and open them up. Right, well there we are, we've done our high-speed unpacking, so let's look at these individually, sort of physically. First you can obviously see that the Corsair key is much bigger physically than the others, and it's because it's encased in this rubberized shell. And if you take off the top, one of the problems you may know you have with Corsair keys sometimes is you lose the cap, and I think that they are trying on this because the cap there has a very, if I can just about show you that, it's difficult to see it, but it has a much thicker bit of rubber on it than we've seen on previous Corsair keys. So when that goes on, you can see USB 3 there because it's blue. This is a very robust key, sold on the nature of being very robust. I feel very confident that one of those will survive in my pocket and will even survive a washing machine if necessary. We then got the Transcend, as I said earlier, very conservative looking key. Nice, good, solid click on the cap. You certainly aren't going to lose the cap off the end of that Transcend there, which is good. Again, we can see in there it's definitely blue USB 3. And then this is the Kingston, which the HyperX, which maybe just about see all HyperX out on the back. If we just turn it a certain way, that's quite effective, isn't it? I'm HyperX. Hey, look at that. This has a very, again, good click on the cap, and I'm convinced that wouldn't come apart. If you buy these in other capacities than 64 gigabytes, there's a nice colour flash here, but here the colour flash is in black, so not quite as impressive to look at as the others, other capacities, but still. This looks like a very solid product, and again we can see definitely blue USB 3. So there's our keys. There they are. Let's put them all together. You can say hello to each other. Hello, hello. They've all said hello. But of course, looking at them doesn't tell us everything about these drives, and so now it's time for me to do some speed tests to see how they perform in real-world situations. Right, well here we are on a Windows 7 desktop, and yes, before you say, no it isn't, this is a Windows 7 desktop, it's just running a classic skin. And what I've got here is an SSD which has got on it a set of test files which I'm going to use for some speed tests with our USB 3 drives. So if I open up that SSD, and open up the folder with the files in and select them all. Large files, as you can see, about 2 GB of files. And we'll then go to edit and of course to copy, and then go to our Corsair drive, the first one to test, and go edit and paste, and see how long that takes to copy across. Going quite quickly, isn't it? And whilst it takes place, we'll also, by the magic of filmmaking, bring down the other drives doing a similar test with some clocks as well, as you can see. I'm quite surprised actually looking at this that clearly the Corsair is not just going faster than the others, it's going very considerably faster. Look at that, about 22 seconds to copy 2 GB of data. That's well over 5 GB in a minute, 93 megabytes a second copy, which is very impressive. The Transcend key is also not too bad, but it's well under half the speed it looks like of the Corsair. Will it do it under 50 seconds? Getting there, 44, 45, 66, 47, 48, 42 megabytes a second, 49 seconds there. If we proved nothing else in this test, it has to be that not all USB 3 64 GB flash drives are the same. The HyperX has really surprised me here. It's advertised as a high-speed device. It's not doing too badly, but in this test, copying large files, which I do all the time, it is taking not quite forever, but what's that, 76.6 seconds. It's only managed to achieve 27 megabytes a second, under a third of that of the Corsair Flash Voyager GT. So we've got a pretty convincing result on which is fastest in terms of write speed. Now, I don't worry too much about read speed on USB drives because I copy to them more than I copy back, if you see what I mean. But here we have some data from the same test run in the opposite direction, if you like, to get some read speeds. And as you can see, the HyperX FURY has done a bit better here, 164 megabytes a second compared to 195 megabytes a second for the Corsair, and the Transcend down at 96 megabytes a second. All of these massively better than we'd see with a USB 2 key, but again, the clear winner is the Corsair, followed in this case by the HyperX and then the Transcend. Recently I've been clearing out lots of old stuff, and whilst doing that I came across this, which is a USB drive, a very really good click on the cap there. This, as you can probably see, is a 64 megabyte capacity. And that really got me thinking how amazing it is that we've gone from a drive like that, maybe sort of 10 or 12 years ago, to a drive like this today, where literally there is 1,000 times more capacity on that drive than there is on that drive. And it really does make you wonder if in another sort of 10 or 12 years, we're going to have not 64 gigabyte drives, but 64 terabyte drives. Sounds ridiculous today, but who knows, it may happen, you know, in a decade or so's time. Anyway, that's now it from me going on again about my favourite subject, which is of course computer storage, and I hope to talk to you again very soon.